my faction, from what we understand, all those crazy attires that we were getting in 2K23
Yeah,
that were
locked
not
behind a
locked behind a fucking paywall, and the
yeah.
cards, the whole game, like the whole game was locked. We couldn't get anything from it. Apparently now, anything that you unlock in the My Factions, you will be able to get in all the rest of the game, which I think could be the opportunity for the updated attires,
For sure.
old attires. Now I don't know how many that would be, but the fact remains that that leaves the door open for a possible one extra attire for a lot of the wrestlers. You know what I mean? Not maybe
I
not
mean,
everybody, but
they did a lot of them last year with my faction. The difficulty is like you said, it was stuck behind a paywall. Unless you were willing to grind it out online, which is fucking brutal, or you're willing to pay a bunch of money so you can open a bunch of packs. That was the only way you were going to get those attires, those different entrances. I mean, what DX for the longest time was blocked behind a paywall because you had to get it in my faction,
yeah,
and there was a lot of really cool updated attires for guys like Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Hulk Hogan, etc., etc. And I feel like, yeah, allowing us if we unlock something in my faction and now we can use it in the regular base game, I feel like that's something they should have been doing this whole time, especially because people are paying for it.
for sure,
Uh,
for sure.
whether it's in their time or they're paying hard-earned cash just to actually unlock these packs. So I think that's great. It might entice people like myself who don't ever spend a single moment in my faction to actually maybe invest some of my time when I got downtime and go in there and give it a try and see what I can unlock so I can use it throughout the rest of the game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like so from what we've seen in the past game 2K23, there were people who loved my faction and who played it, you know what I mean, and indulged in it. Then there was people who didn't even bother, and it just wasn't something they were into.
Right.
Which brought up discussions on why don't you get rid of it? Or why don't you make a separate game, right? Because apparently my faction is a whole different team.
I think the thing is that my faction is a cultural piece of 2K, right? It's huge with NBA 2K. People are right in there buying the packs, trying to get the best NBA superstars, and so I think it's something that carried over with WWE. There's a lot of people that ignore it because they're not interested in it. They don't want to pay the money. They don't want to grind it out online, and that's fine. I feel like I'm one of those people. I hate the reminder every time you boot the game up, and it's like my faction, and it's like fuck off. I'm not here for that. I'm here to play my game,
Yeah.
and I don't feel like it needs to be a separate game. I feel like they just need to not shove it in your face every time you turn the game on. And I would be happy. I swear to God, the only times I ever went on there this year was by accident because I pressed the wrong button
Yeah.
right when I
Yeah.
opened the game up, you know? It's like, "Oh shit. Now I got a 5-minute load screen," because the load times just for that were atrocious.
Yeah.
So,
So,
but, keep it in the game, but, just don't shove it down our throats.
yeah. So my faction is a different it's the same company, but it's a different whole other team working on that stuff, right? So when people were like,
Right.
why can't we get attires from my faction and on here, apparently it was too much work. So at
Oh,
least now they're listening, right? At least now
yeah.
they're listening in this situation where it's like, okay, if you're going to keep my faction around and you know people aren't going to play it, here's a way for people to play it, right? And here's some bonuses you can get from actually paying attention to it and you know, playing it a few times here and there and collecting a couple new things that you can use in the game that you already always use. So
Right.
it's one thing that they're listening, and I guess, you know, it's one way, another big reason why to keep my faction around for the ones that don't play. And, you know, for the love of it, for the people who do love it. But
Oh, I that makes sense. I mean, I kinda chuckled at the too much work. I mean, at the end of the day, you're making a video game that for all intents and purposes is gonna be, it's got a year-long lifespan. Fucking work on it.
yeah,
Like,
it's,
you know,
yeah. I mean, I'm not a
it
game
it
developer, so I don't know, but I
yeah.
can only imagine how much work it takes to make a
Oh,
video game. And
oh, without
unfortunately,
a doubt.
that's just the business, though, right? I
Well,
mean, you're trying to produce the best game you possibly can for the year of that it's out. You know what I mean? And maybe they're on a time span. I don't know. We could probably come up with a massive amount of reasons why they probably don't do some of the things that we think they should do. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I don't know. You just expect them to be doing more than what we think they're doing.